रूपिणी आनंद गुणवदि आनंद रूपिणी आनंद गुणवदि आनंद्य नामिनी गिरिजे मां आनंद नामिनी गिरिजे मां परमे पार्वती सुंदरी भगवती परमे पार्वती सुंदरी भगवती दुर्गे बामति त्वं मे मां दुर्गे बामति त्वं मे मां प्रसीद मात्र नागेन्द्र नंदिनी प्रसीद मात्र नागेन्द्र नंदिनी चिरसुखदायिनी जय दे मां चिरसुखदायिनी जय दे मां आनंद रूपिणी आनंद गुणवदि आनंद रूपिणी आनंद गुणवदि आनंद नामिनी गिरिजे मां आनंद नामिनी गिरिजे मां आनंद नामिनी गिरिजे मां
दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां जय मां जय मां दुर्गे जय जय मां जय मां जय मां दुर्गे जय जय मां दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां जय मां जय मां दुर्गे जय जय मां जय मां जय मां दुर्गे जय जय मां करुणा सागरी मां करुणा सागरी मां कालिका पालिनी मां करुणा का मां जगदोधारिणी मां जगदोधारिणी मां जगदोधारिणी मां जगदोधारिणी मां जय दुर्गे जय जय मां जय दुर्गे जय जय मां अम्बा दुर्गे जय जय मां अम्बा दुर्गे जय जय मां दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां दुर्गे 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 जय जय मां जय मां जय मां दुर्गे जय जय मां जय मां जय मां दुर्गे जय जय मां करुणा सागरी मां करुणा सागरी मां कालिका पालिनी मां करुणा का मां जगदोधारिणी मां जगदोधारिणी मां अम्बा दुर्गे जय जय 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 मां दुर्गे दुर्गे
सरावरणायै सशक्तिकायै परिवारिणी सर्वदेवते स्वरूपिणी श्री शारदा देवी बहुशः ओम ईश्वर सचंदन पुष्पांजलि श्रीमत् स्वामी विवेकानंदादि श्री रामकृष्ण पार्षदेभ्यो बहुशः सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। यथाग्निर्दायिका शक्ति रामकृष्णे स्थिता धिया सर्वविद्यास्वरूपां तां शारदां प्रणमाम्यहम्। भरतक्लेशदालीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्। कालधीकुलकमले माधवेन क्रीडारत ब्रह्मानन्दनमस्तुभ्यं सद्गुरो लोकनायक योगानंद प्रेमानंद चान्ये वैदेक वार्तदा रामकृष्ण गत प्राणा सर्वावस्था।
गाहो रे जय जय Ramakrishna नाम, गाहो रे जय जय Ramakrishna नाम, गाहो रे जय जय Ramakrishna नाम, गाहो रे जय जय Ramakrishna नाम। आज ये शुभ दिन मिलिए बाकत जने, आज ये शुभ दिन मिलिए बाकत जिन। गाहो गाहो रामकृष्ण नाम, गाहो गाहो रामकृष्ण नाम, गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम, गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम। रामकृष्ण नामे रामकृष्ण प्रेमे, रामकृष्ण नामे रामकृष्ण प्रेमे, मतिये उतुक दरदाम, मतिया उतुक दरदाम। गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम, गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम। हरिते बुबार प्रेमावतार, हरिते बुबार प्रेमावतार। प्रभु रामकृष्ण गुणदाम, प्रभु रामकृष्ण गुणदाम। गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम, गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण राम। जय कृष्ण विश्व गुरु रामकृष्ण, जय कृष्ण विश्व गुरु रामकृष्ण। एकाधारे राम शिव श्याम, एकाधारे श्याम शिव श्याम। गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम, 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 गाहो रे जय जय रामकृष्ण नाम।
श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। जय महामाई की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय।
Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Kripahi Kevalam, Kripahi Kevalam, Kripahi Kevalam, Sharanye. Prabhu Kripahi Kevalam, Kripahi Kevalam, Kripahi Kevalam, Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Sharanagatoham, 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 Sharanye. Sharanagatoham, 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 Sharanye. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namah. Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namah. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, जय राम कृष्ण राम कृष्ण जय जय राम कृष्ण जय जय राम कृष्ण जय जय राम कृष्ण शरणं राम कृष्ण शरणं राम कृष्ण शरणं कृष्ण शरणं राम कृष्ण शरणं राम कृष्ण शरणं
मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल। हरि 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 बोले, हरि 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 बोले, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल। हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता। हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता, हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता। हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता, हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता। चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल। चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल। मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल। हरि 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 बोले, हरि 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 बोले, मन एक बार हरि बोल, मन एक बार हरि बोल। हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता, हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता। हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि पिता हरि माता, हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता, हरि गुरु ज्ञानदाता। चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल। आनंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल। चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल। चिदानंद रूप हरि पतित पावन, हरि एक बार हरि बोल। मन एक बार हरि बोल।
नमः। ओम एते गंधपुष्पे वागीश्वराय नमः। ओम।
हे प्रेम रूप श्री
Ramakrishna, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, 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 He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, He Jnana Rupa Viresha Datta, 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 Jaganasthaya Padaya Mam, Jaganasthaya Padaya Mam, Jaganasthaya Padaya Mam, Jaganasthaya Padaya Mam, He Vishwavandya Charanaravinda, He Vishwavandya Charanaravinda, He Vishwavandya Charanaravinda, He Vishwavandya Charanaravinda, Pranamami Parakami Mam, Pranamami Parakami Mam, Pranamami Parakami Mam, Pranamami Parakami Mam, He Vishwavandya Charanaravinda, He Vishwavandya Charanaravinda, Pranamami Parakami Mam, Pranamami Parakami Mam, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, He Prema Rupa Shri Ramakrishna, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, Karunalaya Palaya Mam, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, He Deenabandhu Shri Sharadesha, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, Mama Prana Priya Pani Mam, He Jnana Rupa Viresha Datta, He Jnana Rupa Viresha Datta, Jaganasthaya Palaya Mam, Jaganasthaya Palaya
ओम ओम अग्नये स्वाहा इदमग्नये ओम सोमाय स्वाहा इदं सोमाय ओम अग्निशोमाभ्यां स्वाहा इदमग्निशोमाभ्याम् ओम अग्नये सृष्टिकृते स्वाहा इदमग्नये सृष्टिकृते ओम भूः स्वाहा इदमग्नये ओम भुवः स्वाहा इदं वायवे ओम स्वः स्वाहा इदं सूर्याय ओम अग्नि सोमा ओम भूर्भुवः स्वः स्वाहा इदं प्रजापतये
ॐ वैश्वानर जातवेदयः लोहिताक्ष सर्वकर्माणि साधय स्वाहा। ॐ वैश्वानर जातवेदयः लोहिताक्ष सर्वकर्माणि साधय स्वाहा। ॐ वैश्वानर जातवेद विहावह लोहिताक्ष सर्वकर्माणि साधय स्वाहा। ॐ ऐं 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 स्वाहा। ॐ विष्णुरों तत्सत्य फाल्गुने महाश्रीश्रावासिस्ते भास्करे श्रीरामकृष्ण प्रीतिकामः श्रीरामकृष्ण पूजा कर्मणि ओम सर्वदेवस्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय स्वाहा इति मंत्रेण अष्टविंशतिसंख्यकसाध्यबिल्वपत्रैः तदीयश्रीचरणास्थितोऽहं करिष्ये। ॐ यज्जाग्रतो दूरमुदैति दैवं तद् सुप्तस्य तथैवैति दूरं गमं ज्योतिषां ज्योतिरेकं तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पवस्तु सङ्कल्पितार्था सिद्ध्यन्तु सिद्धास्तु मनोरथा भक्तिज्ञानोदयाय अयमारम्भः शुभाय भवतु। ॐ ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय स्वाहा। 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 ॐ ह्रीं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपिण्यै श्री शारदादेव्यै स्वाहा। ॐ ह्रीं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपिण्यै श्री शारदादेव्यै स्वाहा। ॐ ह्रीं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपिण्यै श्री शारदा देव्यै स्वाहा 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 ॐ श्रीमत्स्वामी विवेकानन्दादि श्रीरामकृष्णपार्षदेभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ श्रीमत्स्वामी विवेकानन्दादि श्रीरामकृष्णपार्षदेभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ श्रीमत्स्वामी विवेकानन्दादि श्रीरामकृष्णपार्षदेभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ श्री गुरवे स्वाहा ॐ गं गणेशादि भक्तदेवता स्वाहा ॐ गं गणेशाय स्वाहा ॐ नमो नारायणाय नारायणाय स्वाहा ॐ श्री सूर्याय स्वाहा ॐ इन्द्रादिदशदिक्पालेभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ मत्स्यादिदशावतारेभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ काल्यादिदशमहाविद्याभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ कृष्णपक्षाय स्वाहा ॐ श्री शुक्लपक्षाय स्वाहा ॐ अमावस्यायै स्वाहा ॐ पूर्णिमायै स्वाहा स्थानीय देवदेवताभ्यः स्वाहा काजी watching it. Yeah. Just watching it. स्वामी विवेकानंदादि श्री रामकृष्ण फुल चढ़ाना ओम ऐं सर्वदेवदेवी स्वरूपाय श्रीरामकृष्णाय स्वाहा ओम इतः पूर्वं प्राणबुद्धिदेहधर्मादिकारतः जागृत्स्वप्नसुषुप्त्यवस्थासु मनसा वाचा कर्मणा हस्ताभ्यां पद्भ्यामुदरेण चिज्ञा यत्कृतं यदुक्तं यत्स्मृतं तत्सर्वं ब्रह्मार्पणं भवतु स्वाहा। मां मदीयं च सकलं श्रीरामकृष्णचरणी समर्पये। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ तत्सत्। श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु। जय श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। जय महामाई की जय। स्वामी जी महाराज की अग्नि त्वं समुद्रं गच्छ। त्वं शीतला भव। एकस्मै पूर्णपात्राय नमः। एकस्मै पूर्णपात्राय नमः। एकस्मै पूर्णपात्राय नमः। एते गन्धपुष्पे एकस्मै पूर्णपात्राय नमः। एते गन्धपुष्पे एतदधिपतये देवाय श्री विष्णवे नमः। एते गन्धपुष्पे एतत् संप्रदानाय विष्णुरों तत्सदस्य फाल्गुने मासे आरास्ते भास्करे श्रीपक्षे अष्टम्यां तिथौ श्रीरामकृष्ण प्रीतिकामनया श्रीरामकृष्ण पूजा कर्मणि होम कर्म ब्रह्मणे नियोजयामि। फाल्गुने मासे आतिथ्ये भास्करे शुक्ले पक्षे शांततार्थं श्रीरामकृष्ण पूजाकर्मण साधकार्थं दक्षिणमिदं आचरणमूल्यं दर्शकण्डितं वर्तितं श्रीविष्णुदैवतं श्रीरामकृष्णाय तद्विमहं सम्प्रदते। ओम कृतैतत्कर्म सिद्धमस्तु अस्तु। ओम विष्णुरोम ओम विष्णुरोम तत्सदद्य फाल्गुने मासी राशिस्ते भास्करे शुक्ले पक्षे अष्टम्यां तिथौ श्रीरामकृष्ण प्रीतिकामनया कृतेस्मिन् कर्मणि यद्वैगुण्यं जातं तद्दोषप्रशमनाय श्रीविष्णुस्मरणं करिष्ये। ओम तद्विष्णु परमं पदं सदा पश्यन्ति सूर्यः दिवीव चक्षुराततम्। ओम एतत् कर्मफल श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु। ओम प्रीयतां पुण्डरीकाक्षः सर्वयज्ञेश्वरो हरिः तस्मिन् तुष्टे जगत्तुष्टं प्रीणिते प्रीणितं जगत् विधिहीनं क्रियाहीनं मन्त्रहीनं यदच्युतं मया निवेदितं भक्त्या परिपूर्णं तदस्तु मे। कर्मणा मनसा वाचा त्वत्तो नान्यगतिर्मम अन्तश्चारेण भूतानां द्रष्टात्वं परमेश्वर। ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यम् अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमीड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामः।
Does this work?
Sorry. It has to, it's like this, It has to face this way. Maybe we can lift it anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Then this speak. Yeah. This is fine. I think as long as it's stable. Yeah.
Good morning and welcome one and all to the Vedanta Center. If you'll just bear with us for another maybe 5 minutes while we clear the front, and then we will continue with today's program. It will be a very interesting program, so just another few more minutes. Okay, once again, to everyone, welcome to the Vedanta Center. My name's Uni and I'll be your host for the day. We have a very interesting program today where we have leaders of various faith groups coming to talk to us on the subject of the path of saints and prophets. But before we do that, we have a little musical interlude from Shrabani Chowdhury, who is a distinguished sitar player of Vishnupur Gharana. Shrabani Chowdhury has been performing in numerous concerts in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney for the last 20 years. She initially learned sitar from her guru late Sri Nikhil Ranjan Das from Vishnupur Gharana, and then received training and guidance from the renowned sitar player, the late Pandit Saumitra Lahiri. So I'd like you to put your hands together and welcome to our Vedanta Center, Shrabani Chowdhury. Thank you.
morning and namaste to everybody. First, I would like to thank Vedanta Center and Swamiji for giving me the opportunity to play in front of you today. Today I am going to play Rag Bilash Khani Tori. It's a morning raga. I will play just a short alap and then Muthala Gat in Tintal. It's a 16 beats cycle. Rag Bilash Khani Tori.
Thank you very much, Shrabani Chaudhary. And if you liked what she did, stay tuned. She'll be back. Today we have a very special collection of leaders of several faith movements in Brisbane. And we have this collection of people at various times of the year in various parts of Brisbane. And we normally at every birthday of Sri Ramakrishna, we have this collection of various leaders in our ashram. While we say they are special guests, they are not really special guests. They are actually special friends of the ashram, because we've met them many times, they've been here several times, and that's actually an honor for us to have all these people with us. Once, twice, sometimes several times in a year, and we visit them as well. So today our topic that we are going to be discussing is the path of saints and prophets. As we all know, saints and prophets exist in every single community that exists on earth. It's part of the human evolution. They form part of the human evolution, and they form part of the leadership process for us as human beings in our behavior, in our moral objectives of life, etc., etc. So to get us going on the topic, we have with us from the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'i, City of Brisbane, Dr. Abbas Muhajir. Dr. Abbas, please. Can we have a round of applause, please, for Dr. Abbas?
Swami, Namaste. The Vedanta Management Center, the MC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be here representing the Baha'i community. Thank you very much for the invitation. Let me first of all start by saying that as I walked in, I felt the spirituality of the center. I noticed from the program that you have been worshiping and saying prayers from this morning, and you could feel the spirit. The music added to that spirit. It was beautiful. Thank you very much for that. Allow me to first of all, on behalf of the Brisbane Assembly and the Baha'i community, to congratulate you on the anniversary of the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, and wish you all the best, all the happiness, both the spiritual and material. I think the subject that you have chosen is wonderful. We are in a place of worship, and worship and service to humanity goes hand in hand. And what better way of knowing about service when we know we are looking at examples in every one of the religions. The Baha'i faith began with the mission entrusted by God to the two divine manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. God, the creator of the universe, is the all-knowing, the all-loving, and the all-merciful. Just as the physical sun shines on the world, so the light of God is shed upon all the creations. Through the teachings of the manifestations of God, among them Abraham, Krishna, Zoroaster, Moses, Buddha, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, and the most recent times, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, humanity's spiritual, intellectual, and moral capacities have been cultivated. The Bab is the herald of the Baha'i faith. In the middle of the 19th century, he announced that he was the bearer of a message destined to transform humanity's spiritual life. His mission was to prepare the way for the coming of a second messenger, Baha'u'llah, greater than himself, who would usher in an age of peace and justice. Baha'u'llah, meaning the glory of God, is the promised one foretold by the Bab and all the divine manifestations of the past. Baha'u'llah delivered a new revelation from God to humanity. Thousands of verses, letters, and tablets were written by him. In his writings, he outlined a framework for the development of a global civilization which takes into account both the spiritual and material dimensions of human life. For this, he endured 40 years of imprisonment, torture, and exile. Baha'u'llah's purpose is to usher in a new stage in human development, the organic and spiritual unity of the peoples and nations of the world, signalizing thereby the coming of age of the human race and characterized in the fullness of time by the emergence of a world civilization and culture. Baha'u'llah has told us, "He who is your Lord, the All-Merciful, cherishes in his heart the desire of beholding the entire human race as one soul and one body." Baha'is hail from all walks of life, young and old, men and women alike. They live alongside each other in every land and belong to every nation. In thousands upon thousands of locations around the world, the teachings of the faith inspire individuals and communities as they work to improve their own lives and contribute to the advancement of civilization. Baha'i beliefs address such essential themes as the oneness of God and religion, the oneness of humanity, which is the pivotal principle of the faith, freedom from all kinds of prejudice, the inherent nobility of the human being, the progressive revelation of religious truth, the development of spiritual qualities, the integration of worship and service, the fundamental equality of men and women, the harmony between religion and science, the centrality of justice to all human endeavors, the importance of education, the adoption of one auxiliary language universally, the abolition of the extreme wealth and poverty, the confirmation of justice as the ruling principle in human affairs, and the dynamics of the relationships that are binding together individuals, communities, and institutions as the humanity advances towards the collective maturity. In light of this, the Baha'is have come to appreciate the operation of a twofold purpose. One, the transformation of the inner self, and the other, the transformation of the society. When Baha'u'llah passed away in 1892, in his will, he had appointed his eldest son, Abdul Baha, meaning servant of God, as the authorized interpreter of his teachings and head of the faith. Being a true Baha'i means being an embodiment of all the human virtues. Therefore, living a Baha'i life in accordance with the spiritual teachings of Baha'u'llah is the ultimate aim of every Baha'i. It calls for an ongoing effort to develop one's character and refine one's behavior, as is best exemplified by the life of Abdul Baha. We believe that he is the perfect reflection in word and deed of the will of the Prophet of God. Baha'u'llah had not only appointed him, Abdul Baha, as the interpreter of the word, but also as the perfect exemplar of his teachings, the embodiment of every Baha'i ideal, the incarnation of every Baha'i virtue. Thus Baha'is aspire to follow Abdul Baha and be as he was. These virtues are found in the holy writings of the faith and include rectitude of conduct, absolute chastity, complete freedom from all prejudices, trustworthiness, mutual support, collaboration, fellow feeling, selflessness, unity, commitment to truth, a sense of responsibility, a thirst to learn, the love and all-embracing heart. Abdul-Baha lived from 23rd of May 1844 to November 28, 1921, and entered Akka, a city in Israel, as a prisoner in 1868 when he was only 24. This was because his father had been sent to exile to Akka from Iran. He was a prisoner in Akka for about 40 years. In 1908, at the age of 64, he was finally freed. A few years later, though in poor health, he made a historic journey to Egypt, Europe, and North America. He gave hundreds of talks urging everyone to end prejudice, treat people of all religions as friends, and build peace. He said, "The greatest need in the world today is international peace. It is the time for love." He dedicated his life to serving the Baha'i faith and spreading the teachings of it. His wisdom and dedication offer a perfect example of how to live according to Baha'u'llah's teachings. He was a champion of race unity at a time when racism and prejudice were rampant. He told us that service to humanity is service to God. I would like to share some stories with you. Abdul-Baha guided Baha'is around the world with wisdom and love and helped people in need. He lived very simply. He wore inexpensive clothes, and if he received a gift of costly clothing, he would give it away. Often, about 100 of the poor and sick from many faiths gathered at his home. He gave each person a coin, a kind word, and a gentle touch. He knew them all and asked about their families. He visited the sick. Since there was no hospital, he paid a doctor to care for them. One young man was so ill with TB that he rarely saw his friends and family. His food was brought to him by a servant, and he was left alone to care for himself. Abdul-Baha heard of this. He visited the man daily, took him food, read to him, and was with him when he died. But not everyone was so grateful. A poor man named Haji Sadiq was so hostile towards Abdul-Baha that he held his robe in front of his face when he would see him in public. He criticized Abdul-Baha and was his enemy, but Abdul-Baha responded with kindness. He sent him food and clothing because he was poor. The man took them, but never said thank you. When he was sick, Abdul-Baha brought him a doctor and medicine, but even then, he did not say anything, and he actually put his cloak in front of his face not to see Abdul-Baha. For 24 years, Abdul-Baha showered him with mercy, kindness, and generosity. One day, the man came to Abdul-Baha and said, after falling to his feet, to Abdul-Baha's feet, "Forgive me, sir. For 24 years I have done evil to you, and for 24 years you have been good to me. Now I know that I have been in the wrong." Abdul-Baha forgave him, and they became friends. At a gathering in New Jersey, when Abdul-Baha was giving a talk, he said this: "I am very happy that white and black have gathered together in this meeting. I hope this coming together and harmony reaches such a degree that no distinctions shall be made, and they shall be together in the utmost harmony and love." There were 1,000 people there, and 19 of them were invited to the Persian ambassador's house for lunch. There was one black person there, and he wanted to quietly leave. Abdul-Baha led the people into the dining room And as they were all sitting in their respective places, according to their rank and file, Abdul Baha said, "Where is that man? Where is Louis?" His name was Louis. They said, "Well, he's outside, he's black, he cannot come in." Abdul Baha said, "No, bring him in. He must join us for lunch." And as soon as they went to find him and bring him in, he rearranged the chairs. Because he was the guest of honor, he wanted Louis to sit next to him on his right, to teach a lesson that we must treat everyone with equality and fairness. When somebody offered him money, the person was very wealthy. Abdul Baha said, "No, give this money to the poor." When they wanted him to rest, he said, "No, I'm here to serve humanity." So what do we learn from this, friends? For Baha'is, Abdul Baha was the perfect example of Baha'u'llah's teachings. When we look at all these stories and many more, we remember this passage from the writing of Baha'u'llah, that Abdul Baha truly, in his words and in his deeds, exemplified. I would like to share this with you because this should be the lesson for all of us in life. Be generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. Be worthy of the trust of thy neighbor and look upon him with a bright and friendly face. Be a treasurer to the poor, an admonisher to the rich, an answerer of the cry of the needy, a preserver of the sanctity of thy pledge. Be fair in thy judgment and guarded in thy speech. Be unjust to no man and show all meekness to all men. Be as a lamp unto them that walk in darkness, a joy to the sorrowful, a sea for the thirsty, a haven for the distressed, an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Let integrity and uprightness distinguish all thine acts. Be a home for the stranger, a balm to the suffering, a tower of strength for the fugitive. Be eyes to the blind, and a guiding light unto the feet of the erring. Be an ornament to the countenance of truth, a crown to the brow of fidelity, a pillar of the temple of righteousness, a breath of life to the body of mankind, an ensign of the hosts of justice, a luminary above the horizon of virtue, a dew to the soil of the human heart, an ark on the ocean of knowledge, a sun in the heaven of bounty, a gem on the diadem of wisdom, a shining light in the firmament of thy generation, a fruit upon the tree of humility. May God bless you all. Namaste.
That speaker's interfering with this.
Thank you, Dr. Abbas. And we offered Dr. Abbas a token of our appreciation. Swamiji provided that token of appreciation. Now, before we have our next speaker, like I said, everyone that comes here are actually not special guests, but friends of the ashram. And all those friends will tell you that I like to hog the mic. More than that, they will tell you that I don't just hog the mic, I sometimes like to go off the cuff. Not sometimes, actually every time I go off the cuff and I speak quite often a little bit of nonsense, provide some dad jokes, etc., etc. So I ask you to find harmony in this chaos today, because I never gave the announcements at the start of the day, and so I'll do it now. So I'll mix things up a little bit. We had a musical interlude, we had a speaker, Dr. Abbas. Now I'll give you the announcements for the day, which is basically, if there's a fire, get out. If you need to go to the toilet, there's one in the glass room on your left-hand side, and there's more downstairs. Today is Saturday. We run our Saturday kitchen, which is run by the Masaradas Kitchen Volunteer Group. And there are sumptuous meals being served, mostly South Indian meals. But for those of you who want prasad, which is a token of our prayers for today, that's also available downstairs. Please ask for it when you are down at the kitchen, that you want the prasad for the day, and that will be given to you. Right? So now back to the program. Our next speaker is from the Catholic faith. Margaret Nayland is the Pro Ecclesia et Pontifex and Secretary of the Queensland Faith Communities Council. The Pro Ecclesia et Pontifex Papal Award is the highest award given by the Supreme Pontiff of the Catholic Church to the lay people and the clergy. It means for Church and Pope. So back on the subject of the path of saints and prophets, and not a subject about me, we would like to welcome Margaret Nayland. Please, thank you.
Thank you very much for that welcome. That was decidedly unexpected, but anyway, okay. Good morning, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Let me extend my sincere thanks to the Swami and to the Vedanta Centre for the opportunity to speak today. It's a real honour, especially as you celebrate the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna, obviously a very important occasion in the event of this community and the wider community as well. So thank you for that honour. I must admit feeling a little nervous. When I told the Swami that my topic would be Francis of Assisi, he replied that Francis was one of his favourite saints and they'd be visiting Assisi later this year. So no pressure on me, hey? Anyway, let's see how we go. I also want to talk about Francis' legacy today. For those who don't know the story of Francis, I'll begin with a little background. Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone, and I'm sorry, my Italian is awful, known as Francesco or Francis, was born in 1181 in Assisi in northern Italy. He was the son of Pietro, a wealthy silk merchant, and Pica, a French noblewoman. It would be fair to say that he was indulged as a child and really had everything he wanted. The focus for young men of his class in those days was to become knights, find glory by fighting, and make money. And Francis saw this as his future. Around 1202, Francis joined a military expedition to Perugia, the capital of another Italian state. He witnessed some shocking atrocities during that war and was perhaps fortunate to be taken prisoner rather than be killed. He spent a year as a captive, became seriously ill, and returned home a broken man. It took him more than a year to recover physically and mentally, and he developed a strong life of prayer as he tried to find direction in his life. In 1205, he felt ready to resume his quest for knighthood and headed off to join the papal armies to fight against another Italian state. They were always fighting each other in those days, it was constant. However, he hadn't gone far when he had a dream, with God telling him to turn back from the path of war. The dream was transformative, as it led not only to a lifelong quest for peace, but also a rejection of worldly goods, a call to total poverty. His father was seriously worried about him and took him to the local bishop. Francis responded by returning everything he had, including his clothes, and went to live with the lepers outside the town. He spent his days caring for the lepers, cleaning their sores and begging for food. To sustain himself spiritually through all this, he continued to develop a deep life of prayer. Through another dream or vision in the church of San Damiano, he felt called to rebuild the church. Initially, he thought this entailed reconstructing the church building, but he gradually came to realise that it involved leading the people of the church community to a deeper relationship with both God and each other through a life of poverty, close identification with all the creatures around them, and the building of peaceful relationship with all. Francis continued a life of wandering the countryside, preaching this message of penance and poverty to ordinary people, begging for food, and retiring to lonely places to pray. He soon attracted others, and in a short space of time had a community of 11 followers. This meant he had to write a rule or instructions for a way of life, which then had to be taken to Rome for approval by the Pope. They had to make sure he wasn't a heretic and was doing the right thing, you see, so it had to be all checked out by the Pope. But that was fine. This led to the establishment of the religious order of Friars Minor, which still exists today. Francis travelled widely in an attempt to proclaim his message, and in 1219 went to Egypt. This was during the Fifth Crusade, when the Crusader army was besieging a city held by the Sultan Al-Kamil. Francis' plan was to meet with the Sultan, in his view, hopefully to convert him, but at least to find a way of establishing peace. The Sultan received Francis graciously, and the two spent several days in conversation. It became clear to both men that their religion's commandment to love God and neighbour led to non-violence and efforts at peacemaking. Francis in particular left the meeting a changed man, with great respect for the Sultan's commitment to his faith and especially to prayer 5 times a day. In Catholic circles, this is considered probably the earliest example of interfaith dialogue. Of course, another thing for which Francis is well known is his love of nature. He called all creatures his brothers and sisters, and there are stories about him preaching to birds and in conversation with a wolf. His concept that all living creatures, including human beings, were interconnected and interdependent has made him the patron saint of the modern environmental movement. And so, where do we see Francis' legacy in today's world? Through the Second Vatican Council in 1965, the Catholic Church teaches that, and I quote, "Humanity forms but one community. This is so because all stem from the one stock which God created to people the entire earth, and also because all share a common destiny, namely God." End quote. And that's from Nostra Aetate, one of the documents of the Second Vatican Council. It was for this reason, and the need for world peace, that Pope John Paul II invited representatives of all world religions to come together in Assisi on the 27th of October 1986 to pray for peace. This was very unusual and the first time anything like this had happened in terms of invitations from the Catholic Church, at least. This event was repeated in 2002. At the local level, we have 2 schools in Brisbane, Padua College for boys and Mount Alvernia College for girls, both in Kedron, which were established by Franciscan religious orders. Some years ago, these schools set up a relationship with the Islamic College of Brisbane at Karawatha. In recent times, this has led to an SBS TV series called The Swap, where students from these 3 schools, plus Ferny Grove High School, spend 3 weeks in each other's schools learning about the religious and or cultural practices of the other. It was the friendships and personal connections that developed during this time that led to a growth in trust, respect and understanding. In many cultures, the name given to a child, or a name changed by an individual, has deep meaning relating to the hopes of the parents or how the individual sees themselves. And so it was on the 13th of March 2013 when Cardinal George Bergoglio of Buenos Aires, Argentina, became Pope. It was announced that he would be called Francis. Having first established that it was Francis of Assisi and not one of several other St. Francis that belonged to the Catholic Church, Catholics who understood these things looked at each other with surprise and, I must say, delight. It showed real signs of what this Pope wanted to be and the direction he wanted to take the Church. And Pope Francis has done his best to live up to the Franciscan ideal. He chooses not to live in the papal apartments, but tries to maintain a much more simple lifestyle. On Holy Thursday, when Catholics remember the Last Supper of Jesus, who washed the feet of his followers, Pope Francis visits a prison to wash the feet of prisoners. But probably the thing that has had the biggest impact is Pope Francis' encyclical or letter called Laudato Si in 2015. Laudato Si is Latin, meaning praise be to you, which is the opening words of a prayer by Francis of Assisi. And the topic of the letter is the care for our common home, and is a statement of the Church's teachings on consumerism, irresponsible development, and the environmental crisis facing the world. People of many faiths and none have seen this as groundbreaking and have used it to establish action plans for change. The Franciscan religious orders established by Francis of Assisi continue to provide education and care for the poor around the world. These are but some of the many examples of Francis' legacy, and part of the reason why he is so well known by people of many faiths today. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. When you said we are all part of one humanity, it just reminded me that today is election day, when everyone is trying to pull the rest of us apart and vote for more than one set of humanities. So for those of you who haven't voted, please remember today is election day for your council. Remember, before the day is over, you must cast your vote. The next person we have here that will be coming up to speak is definitely a friend of ours. She's been here several times. Gail Peratz, who is the chair of the Interfaith Queensland Jewish Board of Deputies and the chair of the Queensland Faith Communities Council. But before I welcome her on the stage, we must also remember that she is here with her better half, her husband, David Peratz. So we want to welcome both of them to the Vedanta Center, but we will call upon Gail Peratz to take the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Namaste. Before I start the formal part of my talk, I'd like to say that David and I visited Assisi a few years ago, and there is a Jewish connection there to the beautiful church. We found out when we were there is that in the Second World War, the people hid Italian Jews under the floorboards of that church and helped them escape from the Nazis. So again, in the true spirit of Francis. It's always a pleasure to come to the Vedanta Centre and be with your community, and it's always a pleasure to have the Swami with us at many interfaith events. And just on Monday of this week, we had the opening of the law year, which has now been called a faith service, not a church service. And many of us here today were present for that, including the Swami. And at the morning tea afterwards, the Chief Justice, Helen Boskill, had seen the Swami. Not hard to spot because he was in orange and there was a sea of black, basically, in the morning tea. And so I took her over to meet the Swami and introduce them to each other. And she made a comment how beautiful the orange robes were. And the Swami took, and I learnt, because we're always learning, and the Swami took the opportunity to explain to the Chief Justice that yes, it's a beautiful colour, but it also has deep symbolism. And I thought that was wonderful and a true exchange of interfaith. So, to the talk. The actual topic is how a saint or prophet of your faith contributed towards the spiritual welfare of your faith by demonstrating through practical application in his/her life of the tenets of your faith. So Judaism is nearing 4,000 years in age. We don't have saints, but we do have prophets. And prophets and prophecy are integral to Judaism. Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the forefathers of the Jewish people, were prophets. Moses, the giver of the law, was considered the greatest prophet who ever lived. In later generations, prophets and prophetesses guided the people, chided them when they did wrong, and comforted them when times were tough. The Talmud tells us there were 48 prophets and 7 prophetesses. I'm going to go through all of them. No, I'm not. Apparently there are many more, but the following are perhaps the best known. So Abraham. And then the Lord spoke to Abraham, "Go for yourself from your land, from your birthplace, and from the house of your father to the land that I will show you." With this simple instruction, we're introduced to Abraham and his seed, who take the central role in the Bible. The Bible is full of divine communication with Abraham. When God told him that he was planning to destroy the evil cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham pleaded with God, attempting to bargain with divine justice. When Abraham was worried over his future, God promised him a son. However, the crowning achievement of the Abraham-God relationship came when God tested Abraham by telling him to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac. And Abraham was ready to follow unquestioningly. Yet, as great as Abraham was, the sages say that his wife was an even greater prophetess, Sarah. As the wife of Abraham, Sarah was an equal partner in his efforts to spread monotheistic beliefs and morality. Abraham led the men, and Sarah shepherded the women. She was originally named Yiska, but Abraham called her Sarai, meaning my princess or superior, because she was superior to him in her prophetic abilities. When she was 89 years old, God commanded that her name be changed to Sarah, which means princess. And Abram, exalted father, became Abraham, father of many nations. And they were soon blessed with a son, Isaac. Miriam. Abraham and Sarah's descendants made their way down to Egypt, where they were enslaved by Pharaoh. In those harsh times, a little girl named Miriam, which means bitter in Hebrew, was born to Amram and Yocheved. Her father was the leader of the generation, and her mother was a busy midwife. Determined not to have more children for Pharaoh to slay, Miriam's parents separated. Miriam divined that they were destined to give birth to the child who would lead the people out of slavery, and she convinced them to remarry. From that union came Moses, the Redeemer of Israel. Miriam continued to believe in a better future, even when her father doubted her prophecy. When the Israelites left Egypt and crossed the Red Sea, leaving the Egyptians behind, Miriam led the women in song and dance. And due to Miriam's merit, God provided the people with a travelling well for most of the 40 years that they were in the desert. Miriam's brother, Moses. The great sage Maimonides called him father of all prophets, asserting that Moses alone was chosen by God from all mankind. Moses was the youngest son of Amram and Yocheved. Raised among Egyptian royalty, he ultimately led the Jewish people out of slavery and completed his mission to bring the Jewish people to the edge of the Promised Land. God spoke to Moses from within a burning bush and told him to redeem the people from Egypt. 10 plagues and one very dramatic sea crossing later, Moses went up to Mount Sinai, where God communicated the 10 Commandments. Moses spent 40 days atop the mountain, during which God dictated and Moses recorded the Torah, the foundational book of Judaism, also known as the 5 books of Moses. Through the teachings of the Torah, Moses helped establish a legal system to govern his people. Under this system, and alone in the ancient world, the Jewish people proclaimed the equal dignity of every person, man and woman, rich and poor. Ancient codes of justice routinely contained different laws for people of varying social status and class. However, the Torah was different, and it dictated that, and I quote from Exodus 12, "There shall be one law for the citizen and for the stranger who dwells among you." All people, regardless of station, were to be judged to the same standard. In Leviticus it says, "You shall not commit a perversion of justice, you shall not favour the poor, and you shall not honour the great. With righteousness shall you judge your fellow." So Moses established 4 levels of courts, from local precincts where people could go for petty disputes, all the way up to high courts that oversaw the lower courts and decided the most difficult cases. Moses' teachings emphasised the equal and just application of law, inspiring a judicial system that protected and empowered the community and laid the foundations for the legal systems of today, which we enjoy. While other prophets only heard from God intermittently, often in a dreamlike state, Moses would speak to God at any time in a most personal manner, in the words of the Torah, and there was no other prophet who arose in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Joshua was Moses' devoted student who never left the tent of Moses. When Moses chose 12 spies to scout out the promised land, Joshua was one of 2 who remained faithful to the mission. The other 10 we don't talk about. And when Moses was nearing the end of his 120 years on earth, God told him to select Joshua as a successor. So Joshua faithfully led the people into the land. Through him, God orchestrated the miracle of the crumbling walls of Jericho and the vanquishing of the tribes who occupied Canaan at the time. Joshua exhorted the people to remain faithful to the Torah and to God, and his leadership is recorded in the book of Joshua. Deborah the prophetess, and she was a judge, ruled Israel from under a date tree. It's called the Tomer Devorah, in the land of Ephraim. One reason for this open-air office was that she was wary of being alone with men who came to seek her counsel, and therefore chose to meet them in plain sight. She conveyed God's message to General Barak that he should go to war against the Canaanites, who had been oppressing the people of Israel. Barak agreed to go to war only if Deborah would go with him. She obliged. The Israelites won with the help of Yael, another brave woman, and Deborah sang a song of thanks to God for his deliverance. The land was then tranquil for 40 years. Samuel was a miracle baby who was born to Hannah and Elkanah. His mother was also considered a prophetess. When he was weaned, his mother brought him to the tabernacle to be raised in holiness by Eli, the high priest, as her promise to God. She had been barren for many, many years and never thought she was going to have a child, so Samuel was actually a gift. One night God called to Samuel, and thus began a lifetime of devotion. Samuel would regularly travel through the land of Israel to judge the people and guide them. When the people, suffering at the hands of Philistine enemies, requested a king to lead them, Samuel heeded their wish and anointed Saul. After Saul failed to remain faithful to God, Samuel appointed David to succeed him. Even after he appointed the kings, Samuel continued to judge, guide and teach the people. He wrote several books of the Bible, including the book that bears his name. He lived a rich and busy life until he passed away at the age of 52. And the sages say that Samuel was equal in stature to Moses, but there was a difference. While Moses needed to go to the tent of meeting to hear God's voice, God came to Samuel wherever he was. This reflected their leadership styles. Moses would remain in his place and the people would come to seek his counsel. Samuel, on the other hand, would travel to the people, meeting them wherever they were. And so we come to David. Wake up, David. David was born in Bethlehem in the land of Judah in 907 BCE, before the Common Era. The people had anointed Saul as the first king of Israel, as mentioned, but Saul soon sinned and fell from divine grace. After the death of Saul, it was then that the prophet Samuel, as directed by God, anointed David as king of Israel. David was wise in counsel, prompt in action, God-fearing and earnest. and the people recognised him as the most suitable candidate for the throne in those troubled times. After he was accepted as king, he still faced challenges from many, including his own children. He had problems among his wives and other tragedies in his family, yet David remained faithful to God, sometimes to the degree that others saw him as childish. Known as the sweet singer of Israel, David composed many praises to God, including the book of Psalms. Abigail. Abigail was the wise and beautiful wife of Nabal, a stingy man who was as tough as a dog. After Nabal, who was as rich as he was bad, refused to give provisions to David and his men, Abigail gave them bread, wine, meat and dried fruits, and convinced David not to kill her husband. According to the Talmud, she did so using proofs from Jewish law. 10 days later, Nabal died, and David and Abigail married. Tradition tells us that Abigail did more than just say wise words, but that she prophesied to David. Solomon. Of David's many children, Solomon was chosen to succeed him as king. Shortly after ascending the throne, Solomon asked God for wisdom, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceedingly much, and largeness of heart as the sand that is on the seashore. Like his father before him, Solomon wrote beautifully, and he composed the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes and more. A great leader, Solomon reigned over Israel in a period of plenty and strength, the likes of which had never been seen before and were not experienced again. Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem, a gleaming edifice where sacrifices would be brought and the people would gather thrice yearly to see God and be seen by him. I'm going to skip a few, time-wise, and come to Esther. The only woman to author a book of the Bible, Esther was the Jewish girl who rose to the occasion and saved the Jewish people, then exiled in Persia, from the wicked Haman, who wished to wipe them out in a single day. It's not an uncommon story in our history. Taken to the king's palace against her will, Esther used her position as queen to expose Haman as a scheming scoundrel, and her people were saved. Working together with her cousin Mordecai, she had the book of Esther recorded for all posterity to be read every year on Purim, the day the Jews celebrated after their enemies had been vanquished. We are coming up to Purim next Saturday, the Jewish community. The prophets, therefore, communicated the word of God, and through their speeches they encouraged the people to create a society based on Torah values and ideals. When the people strayed from these ideals, it was the role of the prophet to highlight this and guide them back to the path of God. We no longer have temple worship, so the role of prophets, sages, priests and Levites are lost to us. This educational aspect has been transferred to professional teachers and rabbis, but the aspiration of the prophets and sages to ensure the values of the Torah are at the heart of Jewish society, and they have been taken on by the rabbis who ensure those ideals are emboldened by those who are faithful to halakha, which is Jewish law, and to mitzvot, which is commandments, the doing of good deeds. Thank you very much. I'm going to use that.
In the name of the Lord, I shall always be brave. Our next speaker is from Bangladesh. What's special about the next speaker is they are actually, the faith he is from is actually celebrating the month of Ramadan, where, while I say celebrate, it's actually a month of sacrifice where they fast from sunlight to sundown. Imam Muhammad Atta Rabi Hadi is the Minister of Religion and Central Missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association of Australia. We want to thank him for taking time from his fast to come and address all of us. And we also want to welcome the members of the association who are here, who have joined him to grace this occasion. Imam Muhammad.
I begin in the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. And I extend to you all the Islamic greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Thank you for your kind welcome. It is my pleasure to be here before you today in the holy month of Ramadan, and as you celebrate the birth of Sri Ramakrishna, to speak to you on the topic given to me about how through his practical and noble example, the Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, contributed to the spiritual welfare of our faith, Islam. The fundamental axiom upon which the building of the Islamic faith was erected by the Holy Prophet of Islam is to fulfill the rights of God as well as to fulfill the rights of man. This truth has been described repeatedly in various forms throughout the Holy Scripture of Islam, the Holy Quran. This is where the divine and the mortal realm can be seen to converge. This is when our spirituality springs forth from the edifice of our morality. According to Islam, our spirit and soul is the ultimate consciousness that must be developed and nurtured through our good actions. As such, it is the love of God married with the love of creation that demonstrates our humanity. As Muslims, we believe that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, was the seal of the prophets and the perfect model of what it means to be a human and live a balanced and righteous life. There are countless examples of how he demonstrated this throughout his life. However, for the sake of brevity, I have chosen a few examples to be presented today. The Holy Prophet was born as an orphan into a society which historians would describe as medieval and barbaric, a failed society on every metric. Yet, it was in this backdrop, even before his prophetic mission, that he was known as the truthful and the trustworthy due to his noble disposition. He was remarkably at odds with the status quo, and this is what led him 624 meters high above the ground to the cave of Hira, where he spent days in deep meditation in search for the divine. At the age of 40, he received his first revelation, delivered to him by the archangel Gabriel. He was so much perturbed by this experience that he rushed to his dear wife Khadija, who counseled him with the following words: God will never disgrace you. How can he do such a thing? While you are kind and considerate to your relations, you help the poor and the forlorn and bear their burdens. You treat guests with honor and help those who are in distress. From that night, the Holy Quran began to be revealed to him, which till today acts as a manual to developing a moral structure and nurturing spirituality for billions of Muslims across the globe. Later on, the Holy Prophet would receive the following revelation: by the growing brightness of the forenoon, and by the night when its darkness spreads out, thy Lord has not forsaken thee, nor is he displeased with thee. Surely every hour that follows is better for thee than the one that precedes, and thy Lord will soon give thee, and thou wilt be well pleased. Did he not find thee an orphan, and give thee shelter? And he found thee wandering in search for him, and guided thee unto himself. And he found thee in want, and enriched thee. So the orphan oppress not, and him who seeks thy help chide not, and the bounty of thy Lord proclaim. And this is exactly how he carried out his prophetic mission, in the worship of God by proclaiming his bounties and in the service of mankind. It is narrated that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, would spend hours standing in prayer, so much so that his feet would become swollen. When Hazrat Aisha, whom he married after the demise of Khadija, was asked to narrate the state of the Holy Prophet's prayer, she responded, "Where shall I find the words to describe the beauty and length of those prayers?" Once, when the Holy Prophet entered their bed in the cold night of winter, he said, "O Aisha, do you permit me to spend this night in the worship of God?" I responded, "I desire your happiness, and I happily grant you permission." Therefore, the Holy Prophet immediately stood up, performed his ablution, and began to offer prayer. He spent the whole night in worship and invocations until his place of prostration became wet with tears. The Holy Prophet not only worshipped in seclusion but also instilled the love of prayer in his followers by offering it with them in congregation 5 times a day, a practice which continues till this day. Where he taught us that prayer was necessary to nurture the love of God, through his actions he also taught us that service to humanity is what demonstrates that love. Once, in a street of Mecca, he saw a young orphan child crying. Others might have passed by unconcerned, but not the Holy Prophet. He approached him and picked him up. The child was extremely poor. He did not have clothes to cover his body, nor shoes to wear. His feet were bruised. This pitiable condition made the eyes of the Holy Prophet well up with tears. He carried him to his house. The child had not eaten food for several days, and so the Holy Prophet fed him, dressed him up with new clothes, and kept him in his house like his own children, and finally sent him to his relatives. A companion by the name of Anas narrates, "I have never seen a man who is more compassionate to children than God's messenger." The famous historian Sir William Muir states in his biography of the Holy Prophet that he was the most generous of men, and due to his modesty and kindliness, patience, self-denial, and generosity, he disliked saying no. Once, the Holy Prophet went out to the market with 8 dirhams to buy a shirt. On the way, he noticed a girl crying. While everyone else ignored her, the Holy Prophet went out of his way to inquire about the reasons for her tears. She explained that she had gone out to purchase a household necessity with 2 dirhams, but had unfortunately lost them. The Holy Prophet was deeply moved by her plight and gave her 2 dirhams from the 8 he had. Then the Holy Prophet continued his journey to the market, where he bought a shirt for 4 dirhams. Before returning, he saw an aged man proclaiming, "Whoever clothes me with a garment, may Allah clothe him with the garments of paradise." Upon hearing these words, the Holy Prophet, driven by his love and generosity, gave the shirt he had just brought to the elderly man. The Holy Prophet then used the remaining 2 dirhams to purchase another shirt and left the market. On his way out, the Holy Prophet encountered a female slave who was sitting down and crying. In the time before the advent of the Holy Prophet, women had little to no respect, and the treatment of slaves was unimaginably harsh. They were often ignored by everyone. However, when the Holy Prophet saw how distraught she was, he approached her and asked her why she was upset. She responded, "I fear punishment from my master due to the length of my absence." The Holy Prophet consoled her by assuring her that he would speak to her master on her behalf. Upon reaching the house, he knocked on the door and greeted them with salam. He then spoke to the master and his family, requesting their forgiveness for the female slave. They not only willingly forgave her, but also granted her freedom. Finally, among the many qualities of good spiritual well-being is that of forgiveness. The ability to forgive not only provides freedom from the shackles of vengeance, but also promotes a tolerant society. One of the greatest examples of forgiveness that was demonstrated by the Holy Prophet was at the occasion of the conquest of Mecca. After 13 years of severe persecution, the accounts of which, when read, make the heart tremble and the skin crawl, followed by a further 8 years in which the Holy Prophet and his followers were compelled to fight a defensive war, despite the fact that they migrated to Medina 200 miles away from their persecutors. The tables had finally turned. On this day, the Holy Prophet returned to Mecca with 10,000 companions. Instead of finally taking revenge by mercilessly killing all his persecutors as an act of justice, he simply announced, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm," that today I forgive you all. This is because the Quran teaches forgiveness should be favored for the sake of peace and where reformation is possible. This is arguably one of the greatest acts of forgiveness demonstrated by a ruler of a nation and is acknowledged by historians till this day to be unique to the personality of Muhammad, peace be upon him. I end by quoting Samuel Parsons Scott, the author of the History of the Moorish Empire in Europe, and I quote, "If the object of religion be the inculcation of morals, the diminution of evil, the promotion of human happiness, the expansion of the human intellect, if the performance of good works will avail in the great day when mankind shall be summoned to its final reckoning, it is neither irreverent nor unreasonable to admit that Muhammad was indeed an apostle of God." Thank you.
Thank you for that, Imam. Our next speaker is actually a medical doctor, Dr. Dennis Bartram. If you want to hear how he roasts people, you should attend the Rotary Club meetings where he's a sergeant. Dr. Dennis Bartram is an experienced skin doctor with over 30 years in general practice, as well as a senior clinical lecturer at the School of Medicine at the University of Queensland. Dr. Dennis Bartram.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you, Swami, for your invitation yet again. It's nice to be invited, but it's always unusual to be invited back. My wife says the second time is usually to apologise for things I said for the first time. Okay. I'd also like to wish a very happy birthday to Sri Ramakrishna. I don't know whether we get to sing him happy birthday later, but I'm all for this. Gail, I loved your talk, thank you. And David, yes, we're both happily married men. We know we're about a third, maybe, not the better half. I was interested in the story about Deborah and the date tree, and I wondered if she was there to escape people trying to woo her. When she was under the date tree, what did she say when a bloke said, "I want to have a date"? What's that?
Dead joke.
Is that what she said? So I'm an interfaith minister. I'm an ordained interfaith minister through the One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in America. And I spent a couple of years going through that because though born a Christian and still have a background in Anglicanism, I just, having come back from Iraq with the Defence Force way back, saw the carnage created on all sides, thought there must be more to this. I then read the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and thought I want to know more. So there is no church that I belong to as such. There's no attempt to convince people to my argument. I love the opportunity to exchange my ideas, better still, to be attentive to the ideas of others. Swami, beneath that benevolent gaze and that very, very orange gown is a mischievous Swami, because you said it was 15 minutes and then the other day told me it was 10 minutes, so I've got a little bit more to do here. You also asked me to pick one prophet from my faith, and I'm an interfaith minister, so I nearly had a conniption. So I've got a few, and if I go too long, you just tell me. Promise no more dad jokes, Gail. Maybe. So whimsically, I thought I might start off with Simon Templar, the saint. Who here remembers Simon Templar from the 60s and his fantastic Volvo, and he was just so debonair, suave. He had all the beautiful girls. He would rescue the women, the damsels in distress. Well, when I was a medical student going to university on my second-hand, weather-beaten, two-stroke Lambretta, I used to think that I was a bit like Simon Templar, but I never found any ladies in distress, and I just wondered when I would reach puberty, which I did after I graduated from medicine. So we won't talk about him, but I will mention Noah. He was a father, wasn't he? Yes, he was a father. He was the father of Ham, but no dad jokes. Noah, 1300 BCE, I think, something like that. I'm looking at Gail now, because I'm trying to be legalistically correct as well as medically obscure. Noah was obedient. He's faithful, resourceful, not bad with a hammer, good seafarer. He listened to God. God was seriously pissed off with the world and just wanted to gently drown them, basically. He said, this is wrong. But he said to Noah, look, let's have another crack at this. You get your family together and hop in this boat once you've built it. And the trip, I think, was slightly over a year, and we'll start again somewhere else. Noah said, yeah, what do you want me to do, Lord? But he did that. Good seafarer, didn't get too seasick. He gathered one of every animal onto the ship. Got to the other end, the flood went down, landed on Mount Ararat. There was no one there to greet them because all the others were drowned. But when they got there, Noah sprung off the ark and had a good look around, as did the others. And then people thought, well, where are all the other animals? Well, there weren't any until this very, very obese lion walked down the gangplank. And they carried on looking for the other animals. They said to the lion, how was the trip? The lion said, accommodation was ordinary, but the banquet was fantastic. Is that a dad joke? It gets better. When Noah got established in Turkey, in the area around Ararat, he planted vineyards, and it was apparently one of the first to drink wine, according to what I read. But he got into trouble. He used to get drunk from time to time. But the theologians and the scholars forgave him because they said, well, he didn't really understand the effects of wine, and so the inebriation was not purposeful. So just remember that, May. Next time I've had too much red wine, I'm just training to be like Noah. Thought the next prophet, St. Augustine. I was thinking of talking about St. Francis, Gail, but he was away with the birds. God, you're a hard audience. So St. Augustine, as some of us know, was quite a character. He started off in life as quite the lad, drinking, womanising, pretty much broke all of the 10 Commandments and gleefully did so, until sometime later in life he met up with St. Ambrose, and St. Ambrose worked magic on him, and Augustine became Christian, settled down, and is famous for saying a number of things. But one of the most famous things that he said, and I'm paraphrasing, is, Lord, please take away my sins, please make me chaste, but not quite yet. And apparently this is true, not quite yet. One of the interesting things about St. Augustine is his belief in the peccatum originale, in terms of the doctrine of original sin. Now, ecclesiastical Latin's pretty tricky, and by the time that's mastered, it's not too difficult to work out that the doctrine of original sin is pretty hard to understand, and it's even more difficult to defend. So I'm not going to try. So, Swami, have we time for one more saint? One more? So how about Thomas More? Circa 1500. Thomas More, I was a great fan of Thomas More because in grade 12, way back then, we studied the play The Man for All Seasons, which was largely about, by Robert Bolt, it's largely about Sir Thomas More and his tussle with King Henry VIII over the controversy which in effect was his refusal to sign the oath of obedience declaration of allegiance, I should say, to Henry VIII, which basically came about because of Henry's displeasure with Catherine of Aragon and his attraction to Anne Boleyn. More was a brilliant lawyer, High Chancellor, very kind, humanistic person, very academic, very scholarly. But the situation with Henry VIII the oath of supremacy became irreconcilable. He was ultimately cornered by some falsely developed evidence by Sir Richard Rich, and he was actually accused of treason. He was initially sentenced to be hanged, drawn and quartered, which is about as horrible a death as you can have, I think, apart from crucifixion. I wouldn't like to choose between the two. But Henry commuted the sentence to being beheaded. But he's famous for saying, "I die on the day of his execution, I die the king's good servant, but God's first." So Swami's injunction today was to talk about the influence of saints and prophets on me and my life. Let's just go back through the 3 or 4 of them. Simon Templar on TV. I guess his Volvo was pretty cool and my Lambretta was pretty battered, but they still got us from A to B. So that's the biggest lesson there. Noah, blind obedience or truthful obedience to God, being a good seafarer, landing in the right place, carting around a whole lot of smelly animals, gets you to live to 109 and drink red wine. Not real bad. Now, Augustine was the naughty boy, but naughty boys can become saints. So I think the magic word is yet. As humans, we get used to judging people. In my work, I tend to judge medical students as to whether they pass the exam or not. That's fine, I get paid for that. But we shouldn't judge people. We see them in a situation, but we don't know what they're going to be. So the magic word is yet. They're not yet that, but they may be. Sir Thomas More, yes, he was knighted as well. Obviously, he was sanctified in 1935, and I believe it was an attempt by the Church to influence the horrible anti-Semitic murmurings of the Christians in Germany, trying to bring some balance. Again, that's what I've read. So what did Sir Thomas More's story teach me? At the time, I thought he was incredibly courageous and brave by doing what he did. I'll take nothing away from that. I think he was very courageous and brave. I just think it's sad that he died for that reason. He felt it was his life versus Henry VIII needs, his life versus God, when in fact, in a sense, it was his life versus a papal injunction, and far better minds here than I am to try and work out the logic of that. But I think it's sad that he died. I'd be very surprised if God, had she been consulted, would have agreed with his death. So in conclusion, most true saints are anonymous. Most of them we don't know. They don't get mentioned. They don't get an Order of Australia medal. They don't get a knighthood. The diversity within the saints that we've heard today, and we'll hear more, I think is wonderful because it attests to the diversity of people throughout the world and a loosening, hopefully, of some of that rigidity which has characterised the major faiths, which is, this is our bit, this is your bit, get this right, join us. We are wise, I think, always to listen to other people's viewpoints, not to present in such a way that we want to convince other people. Not that I'm suggesting that's happening here, but it does happen quite a bit. To listen attentively so that we can then fulfil our true spiritual obligation, which is to work out our own relationship with God, rather than necessarily relying on an interpretation of somebody else. Mind you, Swami, when you reach enlightenment and you're there before the pearly gates and looking really happy in that direction, you see me dragged off in that direction, Swami, please remember your mates. Thank you.
I originally thought that when you saw Simon Templar drive a Volvo, you were going to tell me you drove a Lamborghini. Our next speaker on the same topic comes from a faith that I, be very honest, knew very little about before coming to Brisbane. Since then, I've actually read a lot about it, and I was pretty impressed that not only they exist and have a good following, they have a lot of activities if you go to their website and check them out. Linda Ward is the pagan elder and member of the Pagan Hearth Incorporated. And dare I say, I also want to welcome her better half, husband Peter, to this program. Just for today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank the Swami and the Vedanta Centre for asking me to present here on this birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna. As you are aware, the theme for today's program is the path of the saints and prophets. So I should probably begin by explaining that pagans do not have saints or prophets, or indeed a revealed scripture. Though it could be noted that a Celtic goddess metamorphosed into a Catholic saint and a pagan horned nature god somehow became linked to the Christian devil. You win some, you lose some. Paganism itself is an evolving life path based on each person's experience of the divine in the natural world. Fortunately, we have many teachers and mentors who share their experienced wisdom and knowledge both personally, through workshops, retreats and lectures, and also through their writings that can reach a far wider section of our worldwide community. Therefore, I am very grateful for this opportunity to share the story of a pagan teacher and mentor. Those who have heard me speak on other occasions will probably expect me to tell the story of one of my favourite and much quoted pagan authors, Emma Restall Orr. Today, however, I would like to introduce you to the life and works of a very different pagan teacher. She goes by the name of Starhawk, and her first book, The Spiral Dance, a rebirth of the ancient religion of the great goddess, was published in 1979 and has been in print ever since. The stories I will tell you today come from her 2004 book, The Earth Path, Grounding Your Spirit in the Rhythms of Nature. Starhawk is a woman who walks the talk of the philosophy that is the basis of paganism, that the earth is our mother, we must take care of her, as a favourite pagan chant goes. More than that, the earth, the natural world and its cycles are the physical manifestation of the goddess Gaia. She is sacred and to be treated with honour. Sacredness and honour are two very important concepts in the pagan worldview. Starhawk explains her understanding of sacred in these words. To consider something sacred is to say that it is profoundly important, that it has a value in and of itself that goes beyond our immediate comfort or convenience, that we don't want to see diminished or denigrated in any way. If something is sacred to us, we are willing to sacrifice something to protect it, willing to take a stand or to risk ourselves in its service. We don't idealise sacrifice, however. Aligning ourselves with what is truly sacred means serving those things that also feed and renew us, that give us the greatest joy and pleasure, that evoke our deepest love. To her, that love, pleasure and joy is epitomised in a healthy and balanced natural world system. She explains that a healthy system is one that is characterised by cooperative and interdependent relationships among its members, and that is diverse and complex enough to be resilient, to maintain itself in the face of change. Energy and resources are spread throughout the system so that diversity can thrive. No more energy or resources are used to maintain the system than comes from the sun or are generated by the life processes of the system itself. Compare this vision of a balanced and harmonious natural world, a dynamic, ever-changing, adaptive and evolving world that thrives in diversity, with the world that now exists. I don't know if you're aware of Earth Overshoot Day. This is the date each year when humanity's demand for ecological resources in a year exceeds what the Earth can produce in that year. When it was first calculated in 2006, it fell on December 19th. This year, in 2024, the world date will be July 25. Now, to return to the concept of honour. Through decades of living her paganism, through working in environmental movements and in areas of social and environmental justice, Starhawk has come to understand that we can't simply honour nature's cycles in the abstract. She believes that we need to know these cycles intimately and to understand them in the physical as well as the spiritual world. A real relationship with nature is vital to our spiritual development and health, as well as our physical and mental health. This way of honouring is a vital base for the work she inspires us to do, to heal the earth and transform social and political systems that are assaulting the earth daily. So how exactly does Starhawk walk her talk? On an individual level, she lives in the mountains of Northern California, on the land of the Pomo people. Her cabin is off-grid, having solar panels and batteries for the hot summer months, a micro-hydro system that borrows water from the stream and then returns it after it's turned the water wheel in the wet months, a propane-powered refrigerator, and a wood stove for cooking and heating. Her water comes straight from a spring. She traded her old pickup for an even older diesel model that can run on modified vegetable oil. She composts her rubbish, farms worms to help the soil become more vital, and grows some of her food using the permaculture system of gardening. The principles, practices and ethics of permaculture enable us to design sustainable environments that function like natural systems. The food she doesn't grow is mainly free-range or organic, seasonal and locally grown and minimally processed. She spends time each day being in nature, recharging her batteries and connecting with her place. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Especially when you realise this was all over 20 years ago. However, Starhawk is the first to admit that this way of life is not easy and not for everyone, and emphasises the need for us not to be a purist or to judge. Not everyone has the extra dollars for organic produce or the time and space for a garden. Most people, after all, live in cities. She stresses that bringing our lives into alignment with the earth should not become burdensome. Instead, we can think of it as a gradual, joyful process where we look for the choices we can make that will enhance our lives. She is also the first to admit that because of her advocacy work, she flies on aeroplanes enough that she consumes far more than an equitable share of the world's resources, but it is the only practical way to do the work that she does on a state, national and international level. And that is the next level of her walking her talk. Individual choices are great, but they are not enough to change the world. Starhawk believes that we live in a system that is currently so destructive that the only collective action to change the larger system can hope to stay the damage and restore health to the natural world. The combination of Starhawk's belief in a sacred world that is worth standing up for and protecting, and what she observed happening in the world around her, that inspired her to found several organisations. One of these is Earth Activist Training. This is a way of teaching a permaculture-style design grounded in spirituality, growing community, and with a focus on non-violent activism to raise awareness of global businesses and industrial agricultural practices that are destroying so many areas around the world. Through her advocacy, she is also bringing greater gender, racial and economic diversity into the areas of environmental, social and ecological justice. Again, using permaculture principles, she believes that greater diversity within a community gives that community more resilience to face its challenges. In the 3 years from founding Earth Activist Training to the time of publishing The Earth Path, over 1,000 students have graduated. These dedicated people have since shepherded projects around the world to help strengthen communities. From lobbying government in Iowa to help introduce strategies for energy conservation, to creating water catchment programs in Bolivia, to promoting and planning rooftop gardens in San Francisco, this group is actively making life better. Unfortunately, big businesses whose major concern is making more and more money at whatever cost to community and the planet do not change their ways, if you ask nicely. That's the role of protest and direct action. The essence of non-violent protest is choice, acknowledging that we always have a choice about whether or not to use violence. And in making a choice to protest, to stand up for what you truly believe in, you take responsibility for your actions. Starhawk has marched, demonstrated, organised, been tear-gassed and even got arrested, trying to protect the integrity of the natural world and defending communities from being destroyed by big business. This is the manifestation of her belief, quoted near the beginning of this piece, that if something is sacred to you, you are willing to sacrifice something to protect it, willing to take a stand, or to risk yourself in its service. Thank you. Blessed be.
Thank you, Linda. And yes, the earth is my mother, and yes, we really need to look after it. We now want to invite back on stage our distinguished sitar player, Shrabani Chowdhury. But while she gets ready, just want to remind those of you who have not voted, please remember you got to vote today. Those of you who are looking to have the prasad after today's puja, it's available downstairs in the kitchen. Just ask for it. And for all of our special friends who are here, please, after the event today, don't run away, don't disappear. We have lunch for you, but before that, if you would gather outside at the front door, we'd like to have a group photograph. So, over to you, Shrabani.
I will conclude today my program with a dhun based on Rag Bhairavi.
Our next speaker has been with us on several occasions. It's almost like he doesn't need an introduction. He's the master of the Nematoli Gardirali Shahi Sufi order. I understand he's here with his family members as well, so a warm welcome to every single one of them. Can we have a round of applause to invite Dr. Arsalan Mozaffari Falarti to the stage, please.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which this event is taking place. We also pay our respect to elders past, present, and coming. Ya Haq, my dear sisters and brothers, it's me again. Today we are gathered here to celebrate the birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna. The theme for the event is the path of the saints and prophets. And to introduce how they did and or do contribute towards the spiritual fervor of their faith. Again, our dear sisters and brothers. A Sufi is monotheist, Muslim, believe in absolute truth, the one and the only one, the Creator, God, Allah, Theo, Jehovah, Jesus, Buddha, and all other thousands of names people of this different faiths give to their beloved one. To Sufi, name does not matter. I think Shakespeare was a Sufi. He said, "What is in a name?" And you know the rest of that. Muslim Sufi believes in all prophets of Creator and their books. Sufi is not a new religion. For thousands of years, Sufism has been and is a culture and a school of, do you know what? Love. School of love and kindness, chivalry and generosity, forgiving and compassion to each and to teach and to help. Sufism is not a different religion. Sufis are not selfish. They respect, observe, and follow teaching of all messengers. What message and contribution Sufis masters had in the past and have today toward the spiritual welfare of the world in general to deal with us today? If I want to speak about the Sufi masters in the past and today, I need a library as big as Brisbane and at least 2 or 3 years to talk about them. So let's make it short. If you want, please, sometime we can talk to it. Let us contribute or talk on this same path as we did about 6 years ago on the 30th of June 2018, the inauguration day of this magnificent temple, Swami. That happy day, we quoted some messages of or foremost from Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda persuaded bounties in the world take always the position of the giver. This is what he says. In the world take always the position of the giver. Give everything and look for no return. Give love, give help, give service, and give any little thing you can, but keep no barter. A Sufi master, Abul Hasan Kharagani from the Khorasan north-east corner of Persia, still his Khanaqah is there. And above the gate is written, whoever enters these gates, feed him and serve him, but don't ask his name. If that person deserves to have a life from his creator, who am I to avoid serving him? So I think Sufis are Hindus as well. Sufi masters, Persian peers, we call them peer. Peer means old. In Hindi or language, you say peer too, the old person, which means the eldest. You say uncle. Of Ne'matullahi Qadir Ali Shahi, persuade the sheikhs, I mean the master, after the master is the sheikh who is serving. So the master orders or commands or asks the sheikhs, the teachers, and the disciples to love all people. So the master of the Sufis doesn't ask you to do this and do this supplication or do that, just to love people. Help and persuade, hope, to respect women and to be kind to the children. I always say, future belongs to children. Future belongs to children, and children grow on the lap of their mothers. So how do you expect to have a respectful son if you don't respect your lady? Recently I was invited into an international symposium of peace and religion, and there I said, all the things I said, that you want a peaceful world, respect ladies, respect women, and respect your children. Children are the most important people to the future. Our dear sisters and brothers, as the message has always been and will be the same forever, be honest and truthful, be pure and unselfish. That is whole religion of Sufism. The secret of Sufism lies not in theories. Sufism is based on the deeds. Always be good and do good. That is the whole religion of Sufism. If you have any question, come and ask me later. I don't want to talk about Sufi masters in the past or in the present or whatever. Let us be kind and let us love. A person in love never lies. A person in love never hates, never does anything wrong. And thank you very much. Who is going to lead me down?
We can't argue with a message like that. The next person we have coming up to stage is a person who spends just about every last Sunday of each month here at the Vedanta Center. He's the leader of the Namdhari Sikh Sangat. They conduct a kirtan, which is songs about the Lord, satsang, which is where community joins in, and then a langar. A langar is basically a community lunch. It's free, done by the wonderful mothers of the Namdhari Sikh Sangat. And if you want to taste some really sumptuous food from Punjab, the last Sunday of every month, be here. Oh, I won't say be square, but I'll say be here. I think I've run out of good. I'll stop there. So we want to invite Subha Satnam Singh, the leader of the Namdhari Sikh Sangat.
Might have to raise this a bit for myself. Should be okay. Gathered guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'll start off first with thanking the Vedanta Center for their invitation to celebrate the birth anniversary of Swami Ramakrishna ji. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to address you all today. I was just commenting while listening to all the speakers before me, it made me nervous because I have not spoken much in this kind of big sort of programs. Within my community I'm okay a little bit because I'm used to all of them, but within the wider community I'm not so confident, or whatever you can say. But I'll try. Today's topic of discussion, as we have heard from various speakers, and they were very enlightening, I must say. There was a lot to learn from all of the speakers. It says the path of saints and prophets. I'll start off. I'll start off because I had written it. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed representatives of various faiths, it is both an honor and a privilege to address you today. First of all, I wish to congratulate the Vedanta Center for organizing celebrations of the birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansji, a revered saint of his time. The topic of today's discussion is the path of saints and prophets. Throughout history, humanity has been blessed with the presence of saints and prophets who have illuminated the path to spiritual awakening and guided us towards a deeper understanding of our existence. While their names and stories may vary, the essence of their teachings transcend cultural, religious, and geographical boundaries, offering timeless wisdom that resonates with people of all faiths. One such universal figure I want to talk about is Sri Sadguru Ram Singh Ji. He is the 12th Guru amongst the Sikh community. As we all know, the Sikh community's first Guru is Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That's where the community started. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and then there's a whole lineage of Gurus after him. Guru Nanak, Guru Angad, Guru Amar Das, like that. And then there's Guru Gobind Singh. Then the 12th Guru is Guru Ram Singh. He was born in February 1816 into a very humble household. The tale of his birth is a miracle in itself. At the time of his birth, his mother gave birth to a mushk. The Punjabi word is mushk. It was a watery pouch of very thin skin, which was buried out of shame by the family and the midwife. Shortly after that, when the rest retired to their rooms, his mother found the room glowing with very bright light, and so was baby Ram Singh. Playing on the bed next to her, everyone came running to witness this miracle, including the midwife who had witnessed the birth of a watery pouch. As a young child, he displayed the makings of a saint, being uninterested in playing like normal children. His pastimes included practicing meditation and intense focus, encouraging even his playmates to join him. Meditation, reading Gurbani, that's Holy Scripture, and doing seva, which is selfless service, are the core teachings of Sikhism. His life is a testament to the principle of non-violence, compassion, and social justice. He was born during the time of Sikh rule of Maharaja Ranjit Singh in Punjab. Punjab comprised of present-day Pakistan, Kashmir, Leh Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, and present Indian Punjab, which was later annexed by the British after the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh in 1839. Sadguru Ram Singh Ji, in his very early youth, he even worked as a soldier in the Maharaja Ranjit Singh's army at the age of about 20-21 years. So by working there, he witnessed first the glory of the Sikh rule in Punjab, and subsequently the downfall due to moral degradation, corruption, etc., which encouraged him to reform the society. What he saw, he was quite disappointed with, and because of the very high ideals of the Sikh community in the past, and what he saw at that time while in the Sikh army, he was quite taken aback, and he wished to, he actually left the army and came to his village and went into deep meditation for about 20 years. Then there was a calling that, look, you need to go out and, spread the message to mankind that, we should refrain from being what we are at this present time and start following the path of, God. Like his predecessor gurus, starting from Guru Nanak, Guru Gobind Singh, he embarked upon this huge mission to bring back the lost traditions and customs amongst the people, to respect and uphold the very high standards of Sikhism of the past. By traveling far and wide in the countryside of Punjab, he amassed a large following from all religious and social backgrounds. The British record of that time estimated his followers at about 7 to 800,000 amongst the Sikhs. The population of Sikhs in the mid-1800s was approximately 1.8 million, which equates to about 40-50% of the Sikhs. That's the number of people he converted within that period of about 10 years, which was obviously achieved within a short period of 10 years. Contemporary writers of the Sikh community during his time have written about the sorry state of the Sikh religion at that time, And to achieve this goal was nothing short of a miracle. Places of worship were completely neglected and others were controlled by corrupt and high-handed priests. Traveling across Punjab, he personally went about dusting and cleaning temples and the holy scriptures lying within. He brought a transformation in society by first uplifting the moral and spiritual standards of the masses, which in turn brought self-respect and confidence to take on the mighty British rulers. He was the first Indian to use the idea of non-cooperation and non-violence for gaining independence from Britain. He asked our people to stop using British goods and merchandise, not to travel on rail, not attend any places of learning, not to take legal matters to courts, and set up a parallel system to settle all disputes and related matters within the community. He set up our own postal service, which was even more efficient than the government one. Namdari community obeyed his directives right up to 1947, after finally gaining independence from Britain. He was a visionary progressive for his time. Amongst his followers, he completely abolished the abominable practice of female infanticide, which was quite prevalent in Punjab at that time. He stopped child marriages, encouraged girls to be educated on equal opportunities as boys, abolished the practice of giving dowry by girls' parents at the time of their marriage, encouraged marriages for widows, and stopped the horrible practice of sati pratha. The Indian community, all of us probably will know what I am speaking of. Sati pratha was a custom, very ancient Indian, very horrible ancient custom. At the time of the death of the lady's husband, she was required to also be in the funeral pyre. I mean, that was just horrendous. Sadhguru Ram Singh Ji, he completely, stopped it. He says this is, not human. Prohibited use of alcohol, drugs, and, encouraged a vegetarian lifestyle for all. By instilling deep religious values amongst his followers, freeing them of the 5 vices, lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego, etc., and replacing them with truthfulness, contentment, compassion, dharma, etc., a large number of very spiritually enlightened individuals, sadhus, arose from the congregation all around Punjab. The British government used very high-handed measures to suppress the Kuka movement. That Kuka, the Namdari Sikhs were addressed as Kukas. In their moment of ecstasy during the singing of hymns, they would shriek very loudly, and in that very high, shrill sort of voice. In the Punjabi language, it is called a kook. So their name was given to our community people that these are Kukas. So these people, the movement itself came to be known as the Kuka movement. To this day, I mean, even in the written records, it is referred to as the Kuka movement. It is officially now recognized. The Indian government just recently, just for information, I'll interrupt a bit. The Indian government has released coins in honor of Sri Sadhguru Ram Singh Ji in India, and also installed his official photograph in the Indian Parliament, recognizing his unique, freedom struggle for independence from the British in India. Everybody knows of Mahatma Gandhi, but Mahatma Gandhi actually adopted the policies of Sri Sadhguru Ram Singh Ji. Later on, it also mentions how the Encyclopedia Britannica. The British government used very high-handed measures to suppress the Kuka movement, going to the extent of deporting Sadhguru Ram Singh Ji to Burma in 1872. This movement totally frustrated and confused the rulers, as the resistance was peaceful. In their official records, the British wrote of Namdaris as ones who never lied and can never be loyal subjects of the British. However, the seeds of gaining independence were sown, and this policy was later adopted by Mahatma Gandhi to free India. Besides India, many other states in Africa, as well as the equal rights movement in USA of Martin Luther King, adopted this policy to achieve independence and their rights. Encyclopedia Britannica refers to Ram Singh as the first Indian to use non-cooperation as a political weapon. His teachings were then carried on by all the gurus, that is preceding post 1872. His teachings were carried on by all the succeeding gurus. After him was Sadguru Hari Singh, who was his brother, then Sadguru Pratap Singh, Sadguru Jagjit Singh, and the present spiritual head of Namdari Sikhs worldwide, Sri Sadguru Uday Singh Ji, who was here in April last year. And we must thank the Vedanta community. At that time, all the programs were conducted here at this center. And, you know, it was very nice, very generous of them. The community today, you know, they organize various religious events encouraging religious harmony and tolerance amongst all religious faiths. The last one, like I said, was in Melbourne, Australia. I take this opportunity to commend the Vedanta Center for organizing this event to promote religious harmony and celebrate Sri Ramakrishna Ji's birth anniversary. We pray for peace and prosperity in the world so that human and animal suffering is eradicated forever. This can only be achieved through following the paths shown by saints and prophets. Thank you all.
Thank you for that. Before our last speaker for the day, I just want to make one more very important announcement in the same spirit of the interfaith get-together. Next Saturday, we have Harmony Day here at the Vedanta Center. It's a family-friendly day of festivities which will begin at 4 p.m. and go on till about 9 o'clock at night. One and all is welcome. Please take note, next weekend on Saturday, Harmony Day here at the Vedanta Center. Again, lots of food, lots of fun and festivities. But food. And last speaker for the day, we have our own head honcho leader of the Vedanta Center community, Dr. Ashim Majumdar, who by the way is also a psychiatrist, but in saying that he's been our head honcho for as long as I can remember. Dr. Ashim, please. Head honcho.
I think it is good up. That's good. I thought we started in good morning, but it is now good evening. And I feel very sorry to take long time because we are all starving. So I try to be short. The couple of problems that I have to mention, one is that whatever talk I'm going to give this evening is based on the Hindu philosophy. And there is no reflection on any individual or any other religion. Secondly, I'd like to thank Swamiji for giving his input. And thirdly, the time constraint, because the lunch is ready. I am allocated 10 minutes, then I found out it is 11 minutes. If I go beyond that, you have the right to stop me. I can stop in the middle sentence. Or you can grace me 2 more minutes and I can complete. The call is yours. And it is great that all of you are here, the multi-faith group, because that is what the Ramakrishna's view was. He said that the one house with many doors, you reach the same goal. All different religions of the world are only different ways to reach the God in the same manner. His contribution to our Hindu Vedanta society is great. Today's topic is the path of saints and prophet. Is there a difference? A prophet is a person who receives divine messages and speaks to other human beings on behalf of the divine. He is the mouth by which God speaks to men. Men means men in general. Saint is a person who is recognized as having an exceptional degree of holiness, likeness, and closeness to God. Saint lives in the holiness, dedicated to serving God, spreading his messages of salvation. The Hindu view is that whenever the spirit of religion is forgotten, God comes down, as it were. He incarnates in the human form to show mankind how to ascend towards the Godhead. One of the good examples is from Sri Krishna, who said, when goodness grows weak, when evil increases, I make myself a body. In every age, I come back to deliver the holy, to destroy the sin of the sinners, and to establish righteousness. Divine incarnations discover the eternal and universal spiritual truth. The truth is always the same. The same truth that was revealed to Christ has been revealed to Krishna, to Buddha, and so on. Buddha came, for example, at a time when the religion in India had degenerated into mere ritualism. A powerful priest group preached that only those who can memorize and chant the Vedas properly could gain salvation, to which he revolted. Buddha was born to remind humanity of the truth that divinity exists in every human being, and that this divinity is to be unfolded throughout their own struggles. Again, when the truth of God was forgotten, Christ came and taught, "You shall know the truth, and truth shall make you free." What is the knowledge of truth? It is the realization of our union with the God, of which we are not aware in our ordinary limited consciousness. All the divine incarnations insist that we must have the realization of God for ourselves. Christ taught, "Be perfect, even as the Father which is in heaven is perfect." Sri Ramakrishna said, "Know one, and you'll know all. First the one, and then the many. First God, and then creatures and the world." So what is the difference between the ordinary human being and the divine incarnation? The difference lies in the expression. In the ordinary person, the divinity is hidden, whereas in incarnation it is manifest. Moreover, the unenlightened person is forced to be born again and again by past karmas, deeds, the tendencies and habits formed in the previous lives. The divine incarnation, on the other hand, chooses to be born to re-establish the spirit of religion. There's a big difference there. There is a unique characteristic of the prophet, which is the great manifestation of power. He is aware of his own divinity and can show others the way to God realization. Only the prophet can give the realization by look, by his touch, or his mere wish. As you all know, that Swami Vivekananda came to Sri Ramakrishna and asked him whether he had seen God. To that he replied, yes, he had. Swami then asked him, can you show him to me? Vivekananda was given a touch. Here is the touch. And with his divine touch, his divine sight opened. At one time, when I was touched by Sri Ramakrishna, whoever touched Sri Ramakrishna had the vision of God. And the vision which these divine incarnations give means a complete transformation of mind and life. Every religion insists on prayer, meditation, and devotion to God. We are taught by every major religion that the worship and adoration of the prophet is one of the paths by which God is realized. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, worship me. Buddha told the disciples, meditate on me. Christ said to his followers, follow me. Ramakrishna said, think of me. Vedanta philosophy, which contains the essence of Hinduism, insists that each soul is potentially divine. Man is born in the image of the divine, as the saying goes. Our identity is based on the divine oneness, not the identity of our name, stature, or our performance. The sages and saints have experienced this in their personal lives and have proclaimed this with great clarity. They see the divine present in all beings and hence do not hate anybody, nor do they have any doubt about their own divinity. Common characteristic of a saint can be broadly classified into three categories: purity, strength, and love. A saint demonstrates purity in himself or herself and infects others with this. Secondly, due to the influence of the spiritual power within, a saint manifests strength whereby removing all weaknesses, and that otherwise becomes a hindrance in our progress. Thirdly, the saint sees the divine in all beings. Unselfish love manifests in his or her personality at all times. I'll try to refer to lives of two individuals who are considered as saintly. The first example is from the past, about 4,000 years ago, and the other is from more recent. Both of them had one thing in common, that is tremendous faith in God. In Sri Ramakrishna's words, burning faith. Faith is the very basis of spiritual life. If one has faith, faith in oneself, and faith in the saving grace of the divine, anything is possible. This singular quality removed forever all other accumulated sins and placed them on the level of saints, those two people are talking about. 4,000 years ago, there was a robber called Ratnakar who used to steal and kill people whoever used to pass through the bushland. One day he met a saint called Narada, who apprehended him and said, "Give me all the possessions that you have, otherwise I'm going to kill you." The saint smiled and said, "I have 3 possessions with me. The third one is extremely valuable." Ratnakar asked him to give all the 3. Narada gave him his musical instrument, not a sitar like that, it was a one-string instrument, and a water can. When Ratnakar demanded his 3rd possession, he said, "I can only give it to you if you are prepared to get rid of all your sins that you have accrued over the last few years." Ratnakar surprised and said, "I did not commit sin. What I did was for my family and my friends." The Narada then said, "Therefore you should," and my family would not share that. Then Narada said, "Go and ask them whether they would share your sin," to which all of them, including his own family, his wife and children and all that. But unfortunately, they all declined to accept his sin. Narada then assured him that sin is not constant and it can be wiped out by tears of repentance or by chanting the name of God. He then immersed in deep contemplation and loving repetition of God's name. He also had the vision of his chosen idol, that is Sri Ram. This Ratnakar, who was later called as Valmiki, there is a story behind that, wrote the first poetic expression in Sanskrit, which is now known as the Ramayana, which describes the life and teachings of Sri Ram. He is revered and worshipped by all Hindus today as a saint who emerged from the depth of sin to become a great saint. We don't have Girish Chandra? I made it once. 1 second. The second one is important because he is the close associate of Sri Ramakrishna, and he's called Girish Chandra Ghosh, become a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He is known as the father of modern Bengali theatre. He translated some Shakespeare's drama into Bengali and staging them. He was the actor, scriptwriter, poet, director, and given to drinking heavy alcohol, and also lived an immoral life. When he met Sri Ramakrishna, he thought this holy man would not accept him as his disciple due to his past. Sri Ramakrishna, on the other hand, accepted him with open arms, and Girish Ghosh totally surrendered himself to Sri Ramakrishna and transformed into a saintly person. This is the magnanimity of Sri Ramakrishna that he was able to. These 2 examples, we learn 2 things. 1, that we need to develop faith, and 2, we have to completely surrender to will of the divine. We should make space to let the grace of the divine work through us. And this will only happen when our egos can be thrown out. Thank you.
And on that note, there's nothing more I can say that hasn't already been said. If there's anything that I will take away from today is that despite the colors of our skin, despite the pronouns that we use to characterize ourselves, despite being from various parts of the world, there seems to be a common thread, a non-judgmental, forgiving thread that seems to pass through all of us, which we commonly forget. Just about every saint has asked us to do that, and just about every day we forget to do that. And on that note, I'd like to thank all our speakers for being here, their families, their communities for being here with us, the people who have come to listen to them, and don't forget we need a group photograph after this, and with all the greatest respect for our Islamic members here, can we all adjourn for a wonderful lunch down below. Thank you very much for being here, and good afternoon, not good night. So, do you want the backup?